Renee is amazing.
Hello! Welcome,
That was
everybody.
amazing.
You're amazing. Look, I
You're
tried. Welcome to Never Normal Inauguration Day. Hi,
Today is the
Jackie
day.
Monahan. That was my loving surprise for you. I don't know. Look, we still got to edit everybody, but I thought
I'm
we'd.
flabbergasted. That was brilliant.
How the hell are you?
I can't. Oh, did you? I watched the inauguration and I watched when Lady Gaga sang and she was like, and the flag was still there, and she turned and pointed to the flag. I just started crying and I couldn't stop. Like just the feeling of relief of like we did it. Like the flag is still there. Like we did it. We're okay.
We're okay.
I never
Yeah,
felt
it was really beautiful.
yeah.
Although I'd have to say the pendant threw me off a little bit. You know, I love me some Lady Gaga, but I was like, that pendant is a lot, girl.
No, I was like, I want. That was the opposite. I was like, I want that eagle. I yeah. I contacted my ex-wife. I was like, I want that.
Oh my God, that is too funny. Um, so for those of you who will be joining us shortly, I think I have learned how to navigate comments. I found out before that
Oh
you
right.
have to you have to have it on an actual public stream, not friends, in order for us to read the comments on all platforms. So
Oh
let's see if that works today. So, guys, if you see anything you want to talk about, please try to put it in the comments as we try to explore and see if we can actually read them and respond to them on the StreamYard platform.
great.
Yay. Because I see that, do you see, Jax, that we're viewing? There's somebody here, but we can't see the viewers. It doesn't say who's viewing us. It just says that we have viewers.
Viewers, chat with us. We want to talk to
Talk
you.
to us.
Yeah, we really want to talk to you and celebrate.
Say it again.
We want to talk to them and celebrate with
We
them.
do. Um, Jackie, I love how it says Venmo, and then I forgot to put my Venmo. So if
I
you
didn't
guys,
even know it said
if you
Venmo.
Venmo Jackie, you guys,
I
she'll
will.
have to,
I
she'll
will.
have to send some to me.
I'll Venmo to you.
Oh my God. Um, yes, save. I did it.
So I got sober in during Trump's uh
Administration? Really? Wow, that's a tall order.
and I officially
Do
made it.
tell. What
I
inspired you to get sober
officially
during?
I officially made it through his presidency sober.
You did
But
it.
I wasn't able to say like to celebrate that. Like I would be like, I got sober um during why do I keep forgetting the word? What is it? Administration.
Yep.
During Trump's administration, and I'm gonna make it through. And people would be like, you can't say that, Jackie. You could drink tomorrow. So today it's official. I made it through.
You did it. That was such a sense of relief. Although I have to say, this may be controversial, but I actually respected the fact that Pence passed the baton like an appropriate American.
Thank
You know what
God.
I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it is disgusting to me that Trump wasn't even willing to pass the baton. Like, this hasn't happened in US history since 1869. Like,
It's amazing.
he had to put up that much of a temper tantrum. Like, we all do you remember when Obama was walking down those steps and we all thought a part of our soul had died?
I mean,
But there
I
was
would.
still something incredibly appropriate about him being a part of that ceremony. So I
I'm.
gotta give
I'm.
it to.
I mean, it's just like our. I mean, through his whole administration, I have been like, Trump is a dry drunk since I learned what dry drunks were,
Yeah.
and
Will you, for our audience, explain what a dry drunk is?
it's when you don't drink, but you are still have the ism of really wanting things to go your way, being in self-will city and self-pity city, covered with resentments, not willing to forgive, wanting things your way or the highway. I mean, that is our former president. So yeah, I've just, and I thought we really, when he was threatening to drink the Purell, I was like, oh my God, he'll get drunk. It'll be so much better. Because, okay, so a dry drunk, they don't have alcohol. So they're just angry and self pity and resentment without the relief of alcohol. Like alcoholics, they have all that. And then when they drank, they felt relief. So they,
Because the alcohol isn't the problem. The alcohol is a symptom of the fact that we're alcoholics. So
yeah,
it's like, it's weird. It's like, I always say to people, like, I had a drug solution, not a drug problem.
right.
I had a Renee problem and a drug solution to a Renee problem,
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, that man, I'm so grateful he's not in office. And I gotta say, from a selfish perspective, I'm glad to have my birthday back, because I shared that my birthday with that douche-tard. And like every time there was like a ceremony, I was like, no, I want June 14th back. Me and Boy George. Now it's our birthday again.
Boy
Trump,
George!
me, Boy George.
Did you see Boy George get sober?
Oh my God, I didn't know he was sober too.
Ken was
That's
sober
beautiful.
and hot as fuck. Sorry. Oh my God. Sorry about the swear.
You can say as fuck on Never Normal. Here
Completely
at Never Normal,
hot.
we say as fuck.
He's hot.
Yeah,
Wait
Boy
to see
George
him.
is gorgeous.
Yeah.
I always had a thing for Boy George.
Me too, yeah.
It's the
And
only
I think you and I
boy
both
I've
like
ever liked because he looked like a girl.
I think we both like a little androgynous. I like androgyny.
I'm totally attracted to androgyny.
Yeah,
Yeah,
me too.
absolutely. How about Kamala Harris? And for those of you who can't pronounce Kamala, it's pronounced vice president.
Did you know Jill Biden, she's the first lady that's going to continue working, keeping her job instead of just being the first lady. And
Wow.
and Kamala, her husband, who is the second, what is his title?
The second man? I don't know.
He's the first
What is Kamala Harris's husband's title?
First, second man. Yeah.
First,
But
second man.
look at
Second.
But
I'm just calling him by his name. If
but-
anybody knows what his title is,
I think
please
it's first,
inform us.
second. Oh, wait. Okay, I'm not going to pretend I know. But he quit his job to perform his duties as second man, or whatever.
I love it.
Isn't that cool? So it's the first time in history the woman is keeping the job and the man is going to be there for support his wife. It's a exciting day. What an
I really like him too. He's got such good energy to like fall to the background and let his wife have that moment. And but then there's still that thing with like I felt like Kamala still didn't have permission in that moment to be really vulnerable. You know what I mean? And like that was a historic moment. I would have totally cried. And maybe that is organically the natural instinct of a female, but I felt like she kept her shit together so much, because there's also like I'm in the second highest office in our land. Like I can't cry in this moment. And maybe that's my own personal thing, but I also think vulnerability is strength, and there's something about a woman crying that people perceive as a lack of strength, what I actually think is the opposite. The willingness to be seen. And so like there kind of was, because I could see it like culminating in her, I kind of wished I'd seen her cry in that moment, like in a beautiful way. Not that I'm judging her, like, oh my God, I'm so grateful that she is our vice president.
I think that
who am I to say what that moment would even feel like?
Right. I agree. I do feel like it's a gray area of, we want to be where I think it would have been fine either way, but I don't know if we're there all, it's her first time. She doesn't want to cry. That's the first woman,
Maybe it's just because I'm siphoning it through my only perspective, and I like cry all the time at everything.
Same. I busted out
like
crying
6
with
times
Lady
a day.
Gaga. I was crying with Lady Gaga.
Lady Gaga was pretty magical. In all honesty, what melted my heart? Garth Brooks. Because I also feel like Garth Brooks is sort of symbolic of creating unity in our country. The Southern boy, country singer, you know what I mean? He has a following that's sort of that right-wing conservative following, but yet he's liberal and he's a Democrat. And like, he's like one of those people that falls someplace in the middle that could create unity. Because I will say, like, even as like a liberal, I do feel like sometimes we can be polarizing, and we're all on our spiritual path, and sometimes we've been indoctrinated for generations, and it takes a little while to get there. You know what I mean? And I think we need people like Garth Brooks to be that middle ground, to create this like cohesiveness, because it's going to be really hard to bring our nation together if both sides of the spectrum continue to stay really, 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 really polarized. And I think it's one of the reasons why Joe Biden is president right now, is because I was gung ho Hillary Clinton, but I also realized like the same thing with like Bernie supporters. They were very polarizing candidates, and we have to allow, when we think about like not just our personal attachment to a candidate, and we think about our nation, you know what I mean? That truly is what being a public servant is, right? We've got to who's going to represent the voice of the nation
Right.
the best as
Right.
we all evolve as human beings, you know? And I think, I don't know if somebody as liberal as us or Hillary Clinton like was able to be a cohesive leader to create unity in our country yet, as much as we want that. Like,
Right.
it's not about my
Like you and
personal
I are
opinion.
ready. We're ready for
Yeah,
crying.
we're ready.
Yeah.
Totally. But that's why it's like I accept that. Like, that's what really bothers me about, even when these people who have opinions about like I don't agree in gay rights and all of that stuff, like that's fine. Take your time. I'm whatever reason why you have this deep wounding, while you feel like you need to hate me, that I'm not trying to change your opinion. I think we need the yin and the yang. The contrast is what allows me to decide how I want to evolve. I'm not telling anybody that they need to live their lives differently, but you don't get to create laws that terrorize my people because of your fucking opinion about gay people. Like, you don't get to terrorize me. You don't get to make Black people's lives miserable every single day because you have an opinion about that. Like, I don't care what your opinion is about race or LGBT rights. Like, it's not, do you see what I'm saying? So it's
I
that
see
kind
what
of
you're saying.
thing where
It's
like,
interesting because I was thinking about something like that today too, but in a different way. I was thinking of perspective, and how, like, if the people that stormed the White House, they have what's called confidence bias, where they believe wholeheartedly that they're doing the right thing. They
right.
they think they're doing the right thing. Where you and I have learned, but from getting sober, that we have to see a different perspective, or we're going to keep making mistakes. So we have to learn to see the world through different lens, and it's a beautiful lens, and our lives change dramatically in a beautiful way. And I feel like it just made me laugh thinking of how we could do that, how we could get them to see a different perspective. And I was like, oh, well, maybe the only way would be to show them that we could see their perspective.
Totally. I find in my experience that if we look for the innocence in others and not the guilt, and I'm not excusing any kind of behavior, but as a natural default in humanity, if we look for the innocent in others and not the guilt,
Absolutely.
people will do the same for us. And at some point in those people's experience, like, they leaned toward understanding the world through hate and not love. And
Right.
I believe that, like, that's what fear is. It's just, it's everything in life is either love or a call for love. And fear
Right.
is a call for love. And they just
Right.
don't know how to do it. I mean, I think at some point in Trump's humanity, he was also innocent, you know? And it's like, but it doesn't mean that you can't have discernment and be like, I can't, you know, there's a line where you can't allow
Yeah.
for certain behavior. Like,
You have
I
that
had this experience.
like life is about constantly forgiving. It's not like, oh, you forgive these people and then stop. We live in a world where people are making mistakes constantly. We're human, so our life is just about constantly forgiving and not accepting it, and not yes, accepting it, but not letting it keep happening. To set boundaries, forgive and set a boundary, forgive and set a boundary, forgive and set a
Forgive
boundary.
and set a boundary. Totally. You know, I had this experience, and this doesn't pertain to this, but it's like this personal story. Literally just happened to me yesterday, but it was like, it really kind of tore at my heartstrings, and I didn't really know how to navigate the situation. But as you know, I manage a Starbucks, and I was like closing my store, or supervise Starbucks, and I'm like closing my store last night, and we close at 8 o'clock, and at 7:57 this homeless, very drunk woman comes in and orders a coffee, and I have this exchange. She empties the contents of her purse. There's pills everywhere all over my counter, and I get her a coffee, and she asks for half and half on the side, and I accommodate that. And then she wants a Splenda and 4 sugars, but doesn't like the taste, the combination of the Splenda with the sugar, and asks me to re-pour the coffee, and did it. And all of a sudden it's like 8:01, 8:02, and I could just tell she just wants to be seen and heard, and she wants to feel like somebody will take care of her in that moment. And in that moment, I'm leaning toward her innocence. I see I'm an addict, I see that, like, there's a part of me that just like wants to hold her up because she's an addict. But then I'm also like, now I have to close my store. We're past business hours. Like, I can't have any customers in my store. I need to ask this woman to leave. So I very lovingly, I walk her out. I grab her coffee, and I'm like, I'm unlocking the door. I'm like, I need you to leave, ma'am. And she says, you're discriminating against me. And I said, no, just no customers. And I think she was referring to discrimination for her being homeless. Like, right. It wasn't a racial thing. She was white, and because that's a whole nother level of slippery slope. Right. But I'm like, no, just nobody who, if you're not an employee, you cannot be in the store right now. It's just not discrimination, past business hours. Like, I can't do any of the cash management. I can't open the safe. I can't do anything with customers in the store, so I'm like, I'm needing this woman to leave. She's refusing to leave and saying she's going to report me to corporate and I'm discriminating against her. And she like literally fucking won't leave. And then she's like, don't call the cops on me. And it's like, so this is where I go, I have this thing where I have a sensitivity to that, because also dating a criminal defense attorney for a long time, she really opened my perspective to, you do not call the cops until it is the last absolute resort. You are in danger. Like, you fucking wait. Like, do not call the cops unless it's absolutely the last. Because there's so many people who are like, oh, this person's knowing me, I'll just call the cops, and then it's like, she's an addict. She's got stuff on her. She's like, you don't know what the residual consequences would be if I went and called the cops on this woman. So everything in my gut is like, I need this woman to leave. This is not appropriate. She was pissing me off. I needed her not in my store. But at the same time, I could see her innocence. And my other employees are like, call the cops on her. Call the cops on her. I'm like, I'm not going to call the cops on her. You know what I mean? Unless she throws something at me or stabs me, like... and then finally I was able to track down the security guard, who was like, by the way, the security guard to the plaza was like sitting in his van asleep. I give him free coffee all night, which is ridiculous. Clearly that didn't work, the free coffee. Because he was literally asleep in his van. And I'm like, hey, by the way, can you just ask her to leave? Like, I don't know if you noticed, but like, what the fuck? And then finally she left and all was well. But like, in my long-winded way, that's the point of my story, is like, we can live in those simultaneous worlds where it's like, I saw her innocence. I felt sad for her addict. I wasn't going to call the cops on her. I didn't want to cause her harm, but I also was like, bitch, get out. Like, the lower self was just like, I need you to get out of my store. My employees are there late. I still haven't closed down. Now I'm at work another extra half hour.
Yeah,
and I got to fill out an incident report.
You can't sacrifice you, and like, it's divine selfishness. And it's not being selfish, it's the rules. And you would be taking...
Yeah, I'm not discriminating. Like, I literally can't have the public in my store right now.
I'm really mad as the security guard.
I was like, where were you sleeping in your car with the free coffee I've given you all night? Really, dude?
You tell him to always be there when you're closing to get people out.
Yeah, I mean, he works the plaza until midnight. So like, and he just comes in and gets free stuff and doesn't actually serve as a security guard. Now, we don't have a lot of incidents. I'm in Silver Lake, but right. Occasionally we do. And it's never the moment when he's around. Never. Like, I can't find him anywhere. Every time, like, the few things that have happened at our store, he was asleep in his van, in his minivan, literally asleep in his minivan in the parking lot. Yeah, it was a magic moment.
Yeah, but I think it's so as I was talking with the perspective, I think it would be really funny to take somebody that like stormed the White House and ask them, like, now can you change, like, have them watch one of us change our perspective and see things their way. Like it just would be ridiculous for them to watch. Like, for them to change their perspective but we do have to look at their perspective as because they're all in fear. They're in fear.
And it's true. Like, as human beings, ultimately, we all just want to be seen. And so even though it's not it's not right. These like white nationalists who
Right.
have been so seen for so long
Right.
are all of a sudden being like, they're being activated with this emotion of like,
Right.
whoa, what if I'm disappearing, and like we're all going to become brown and mixed, and my whiteness is going to
Yeah.
somehow disappear.
Right.
That fear is still like, it comes from a very like organic human need to be seen. Like none of us want to be invisible,
Right.
so whether or not we agree with their position, it's coming from that place of like, they believe if they're not the supreme race, that they're somehow not seen,
Yeah.
you
And
know
they feel that their perspective is everybody else's. So they're in this fear and want to retaliate and be angry. So they're afraid that when they have less strength in numbers and less people on their side, that people are going to do that to them. Well, no, we just want to get along and live in peace and love. But they don't understand that. They think like our times where they're going to kill us. Like, I don't know.
totally.
They're in such fear that it's just like, what are they thinking? Like, I told you I did a show where this guy, he's a Muslim comedian, and he made these beautiful, beautiful points about equality. And then when I came up and I was making jokes about what about flattening the curve of the patriarchy, he was like, "Oh my God, I'm so scared of that." Like, why are you scared of women being, like, I couldn't believe it, because people have like, they're so used to having some kind of power that taking it away, but it's not taking away, it's evening it out. There's enough for everybody.
Totally. It doesn't take away, but I think a lot of like the male identity comes from being like providing for, they've been taught, that we talk
Yeah,
about this like systemic racism, or this systemic, like there's systemic like misogyny and system, you know what I mean? Like
right.
they're indoctrinated to believe like this is how they can be of service to women. So if women can do the exact same things that they can do, then what is their purpose? So it almost comes from a place of like lack of purpose if we can do everything that they can do,
Right.
and that's why like my favorite sign that I ever saw at the Women's March is, anything we can do, anything you can do, we can do bleeding. And it's
Oh my
really
God,
true.
that's
Like
so great.
it's really powerful. Like honestly, like everything that you guys do in life, we can also do it while we're just like involuntarily pouring menstrual blood from our bodies, cramping, and like, and then I heard this thing the other day, which I also thought was really like telling of the female experience, from the guy that comes in, picks up the money from the Starbucks. And and I guess he was actually referencing Chris Rock. He had heard it from Chris Rock, but when he comes in to exchange money, he has buttloads of money, like the Brink security guy, where he's transferring money from one safe to another, a business. And in that window where he's walking outside with all these bags of money, he's like, this must be what it's like to be a woman every day in the world. That like, where he's, like where it's like, oh my God, that fear of like, at any moment somebody could attack me, or like, and he's like, Chris Rock had said it, I guess, in one of his comedy specials. I hadn't heard it, but that's where he was like, wow, it was the first time in my life I understood the perspective of what it must be like to just walk through the world as a woman. And
Right.
I'm like, what a great analogy, because I'm sure, right? Like carrying bags of money when you're like,
Yeah.
that's cash. He's carrying bags of cash on his body,
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's basically having a uterus.
Yeah.
Pretty much sums it up.
The Wanda Sykes, one of my favorite jokes of hers is, she's like, I want to leave my vagina at home when I go jogging. And it's just like, someone's like, I'm going to rape you. She's like, it's at home. Sorry. I left it home. Like, that's so great. Sorry, bro. It's not here.
So, dude.
But what is the chastity belt? I would love to have the chastity belt. Like, if somebody tried
Although,
to.
can you imagine running with that shit? Like, that's the frustrating thing about being a woman. Like, I wear really tight pants when I run too. You know why? Because like the friction, I want to be able to run and feel comfortable and feel like my sweat is exiting my body. So if I have like really, really loose pants that makes the other gender comfortable while I'm running, like, fuck that. I'm not going to wear a chastity belt and really loose pants, like I'm running, I'm sweating. I want the special like Lycra equipment or pants that are going to like allow me to
A big
not feel
iron
wet while
chastity
I'm
belt.
running. Is that stupid?
If I had a daughter, I would put a chastity.
You would put a Jessie Mel. I know. That would be a different world once I was parenting.
I
But
would put her in a cage. I like a cage where she could walk still.
oh my God.
I would just say
We'll edit that part out.
this is why I haven't had children, because I worried so much about me growing up. Like there was so much walking through the world as a woman. It was very hard.
I feel the same way. Like, there's a reason why I haven't reproduced because I feel like I would accidentally damage my children so much from my own shit, like my own wounding. That and the fact that I couldn't really afford them. But I'm like, sometimes I will have triggers or make associations that I'm like, if I ever put this on to my kids, that would be
Yeah.
really, really
Yeah.
awful. I even have this moment like with aging, the little girl I used to nanny for. One of the wisest things anybody has ever said to me is I was totally having one of those older moments where I was like, wait till you're this age, wait till you're 30, wait till you're 40, da 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 da. And it was her 14th birthday, and she said to me, but Renee, 14 is the oldest I've ever been.
Oh, how cute.
And I was like, if you think about it, every time we age, it's the oldest we've ever been.
And
So
right
like
now,
each
the youngest
person,
will ever
right?
be.
Like, isn't that so wise?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, that makes sense to me. So for us to diminish that experience, and
Yeah.
I'm like, holy shit, that's the stuff I'm going to accidentally do with my children. Like, I probably fucked this girl up by being like, everything that you're sharing me at 14 is not important, you know what I mean? And I'm like, oh, that's the stuff I would accidentally do to my kids because I have issues with aging. This poor 14-year-old feels completely insignificant.
Yeah.
I'm like, that wasn't what I meant to do.
Wait a minute. Why are you nannying a 14-year-old?
What?
Isn't 14 kind of old to be nanny?
Yeah, I mean, this was years ago, but she's like 23 now. But I when they got older, I sort of inadvertently became the administrative assistant to the family because it was like I had a bond with the family, but it was almost like you didn't need me so much. But she had younger siblings, so she was the oldest.
Okay. All right.
So it was more like when she became 14, like I kind of just like made her dinner and then she did her own thing, and then I took care of the younger ones, you know.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, like eventually it got to the point where I kind of I got laid off because I aged out of the position. It's just they became adults and like they just didn't need me anymore. That's basically what happened. I'm like, I guess it's a good reason to get fired. They're like, well, they're in college now, so we don't need you living in our house.
You're like still there. Like, what do you need me to do?
Yeah, exactly.
So cute.
You're so cute.
Yeah, but like, but walking through the world like a guy with a ton of money, that's such a great analogy. And like, I feel like all men should have to do that. Like, you
just
know,
carry
like,
buttloads of cash on your person, but you can't have a gun. You can't have any way of protecting yourself.
yeah,
That's the
and you have to
caveat,
go
right?
to a dangerous area
Totally.
because
And then
everywhere,
all you're doing is just walking through space, doing your job, being
Yeah.
alive, and like you're in fear. at all
Right.
times.
Yeah. Yeah, like I wouldn't want to put my daughter in a cage, but what I'm saying is I would
I know you're joking.
I would want to like have I just wouldn't want anybody to touch her.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't want it. You know what I mean? It would freak me out. I would do everything to protect her. It's like I was like, I know if because of all of my program stuff, like I feel like I could let her have her own life, but I feel like I would be like just so worried all the time because I was so worried for myself. So many incidents happened with me inappropriate that you know it wasn't, you know, even now I finally am like, oh good, I'm old enough that nobody can bother me anymore. and I got chased by a car of 4 guys in Culver City. You know what I mean? Just like this year.
It's true. I've had a bunch of experiences just this year too, like especially because I opened my store when I was in New York City, you know, didn't have a car and I opened my store. So I went to work before dark and people would roll up, like men would roll up right next to me and be like, hey babe, do you need a ride to work? And I'm just like, I just want to walk. It's 4 a.m. Like, I just want to be in peace. I just want to, like, I don't want, if I were a dude, you would not roll up next to me and offer me a ride to work. You just wouldn't. And I have these moments where I'm like, if you wouldn't do it to a guy, that is the litmus test. If you want to know if it's appropriate, if you wouldn't do the
Yeah.
exact same thing to a man, don't do it to me. If you would roll up on a guy and be like, hey, buddy, what are you doing today? You going to work? Oh, you go, I'm going to work too. What do you do for work? If you would do that to a dude, you can do it to me.
Right, right.
Sure.
That is a good litmus test. Like if you're like, you look pretty if you were smiling, or
Yeah, like if you would say
yeah,
that to a guy, then fine, say it to me. Like if
yeah.
I remember this one time at my store, like this guy went up to one of my female customers who was just like putting coffee, putting cream and stuff in her coffee, and he was just talking to her, just small talking about his day, and she was trying to hustle, like she was late to work, like she just wanted to put her cream in her coffee and get the fuck out of there, and he like wanted to have a conversation and was like, well, you don't have to be a bitch, I'm just talking to you, it's not like I'm touching you, he says. And he wasn't touching her. But she's like, you're impeding my flow of the day. That's why it's harassment. Like, all I want to do is get my coffee and get out of this Starbucks in 30 seconds. And the fact that you feel entitled to me responding to you, the fact that I'm even having this discussion with you, and now I'm going to be late for work is the reason why it's not okay.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I
It's
love
like,
that. Yeah. It's been such a part of life. Like they say it now. Like if a creepy guy says that you have to make him comfortable, like no, we don't have to make people comfortable anymore. Like
yeah.
just because somebody, and the manipulation of like you're too good for me? Like, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. At this moment,
I'm
yes.
actually too
And
good for
not too
you.
good. I believe we're all one and all equal. But if you're saying that to me, yes,
In
because
that moment, for sure. Like
yeah,
that guy really did say that to me one time when I was going to work. You going to work? Oh, I'll help you with work. And I was like, oh, good. I shovel shit with my bare hands for a living. I really could use the help today. So that's cool.
yeah,
Thanks. Join
yeah,
me. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I'll help you with work.
yeah. That's
Really,
why it's good
dude?
we have a woman vice president. So I feel like just having that in the air gives more respect.
Exactly. It really is like,
Because you wouldn't say
because
that to the vice president. You'd be like, "Hey, do you need to ride to work?" I mean,
it's just yeah, and it's just representation. Like, even though obviously never normal, this platform is about us having these spirited discussions. There's also something to be said about getting to a point where the representation replaces the need to always be having a discussion about it. You know what I
right?
mean?
Yeah,
Like, we shouldn't always have to be in a debate. It's kind of like racism. Like, to me, that's in a weird way, it's sort of fucked up that racism is a debate. It shouldn't be a debate. It's not
that's
a
what I'm trying
debate.
to get
Like,
at. That's what I'm trying to get at with the different perspective, like showing. Like that's their perspective. Like it's ridiculous to think that
like
racism
it's
is
not
a
an
big thing.
opinion. Like, I don't want to have a debate about like
Right,
race.
right. That's why I think it's so funny to show them how ridiculous it is. To be like, look, I'll show you your perspective. You show us ours. For
Yeah.
them, to be like, black people are going to take you know what I mean? Like, it's so ridiculous to show it to them instead of being like, you're wrong, we're right. Like, it's just going to stay that you're wrong, we're right, we are wrong, we're right. Then if we show them like, this is like, okay, I'll take on your perspective. This is what your perspective looks like. It's
Yeah.
it's it's insane. Show
And sometimes the perspective, like to even argue with a perspective, like, no, black people are just as seen as white people, really? Because guess when they just came out with the dark brown band-aid in 2020. It's been light
wow,
beige band-aids for fucking 150 years. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
think about that for a black person's experience. Like, every time they had a cut, they were reminded of their blackness. Like, we don't see that. Even as a Latina woman, band-aids match my skin tone. Like, that was never a part of my, you know what I'm saying? So
right.
it's like, it's little stuff like that. Like, we don't even realize like what that must be like to be like constantly reminded that that's not going to be, that you're different, you know what I mean? And
Right.
just having a sensitivity to the fact that you can't relate. you
Right.
know?
Celebrating the difference is great. Everybody being themselves is beautiful. So maybe that's a way to show them the different perspective. Like we
I
don't
feel
want,
like God just shined a light on you in that comment. Like all
yeah,
of a sudden you're so beautifully illuminated. Dun dun dun. Jackie Monahan, everybody.
but like
Oh,
having them be like, we want you to be you authentically, but authentically you is not somebody who thinks that other people shouldn't be able to be their authentic selves.
definitely.
There's no way somebody's like, it's all fear. So it's like
Totally.
we want you guys to be you, but this isn't
But
you.
like also rushing the Capitol in a Chewbacca
That's
suit is
fear.
not your authentic self. That's like your
Exactly.
fear-based hidden ego
That
self. So when we
exactly.
say authentic self, we mean like authentic self, where like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Beautiful individual.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Well, I think that is a great note to end this episode of Never Normal. But Jackie, stay with me after we end because I have a few things to discuss with
Ooh la
you.
la la. Don't
And
be
guys, you can also
so
comment when we're not live too. So any feedback, let us know. I actually kind of wanted to have a discussion about potentially brainstorm for next week, maybe changing our time slot so we can get some more viewership, so we can have our audience participate in this conversation. But we're going to visit that. So please comment later on too, people. Thank you for joining us for Never Normal.
we love you.
Inauguration Day. We love
Inauguration,
you. Get involved.
happy
Get
birthday.
involved. Get involved. Get
We have a
involved.
real president. We have a
We
real
have a real
president.
president.
We have a real
Yeah!
president.